I know, I am late to the party. Official release of the Avatar set was over 2 weeks ago. But I kinda went into the Final Fantasy Tactics rabbit hole and emerged only recently. However, I promised my playgroup a quick rundown on the whole set, and I'm going to deliver. Fortunately, that's the last set of the year, so I have some time to do other things down the line. But for now, time to take a look at some interesting cards from the eternal part of the collaboration between Magic and Avatar. We're starting with Katara's Reversal, an instant for 2 generic and double blue that lets you do a lot of things at once. At the baseline, it can counter up to 4 spells or abilities. That means if you have some BS that triggers a lot of things, you can stop some or even all of them while countering something on the stack. But the second part is much more interesting to me. Untapping up to 4 artifacts or creatures can very easily be broken with the right commander. TLE Wildcard or Kitsa Otterball Elite can go infinite with this if you have enough mana dorks or mana rocks on the field. In the case of Stella, you can probably present a win attempt with infinite mana as an addition to interaction with your opponents. It's on the expensive side, but it seems powerful in the right shell. Speaking of the right shell, Fire Nation Torrent is an artifact for 2 generic and 1 red that buffs your creature with +2/+0 and Firebending 2 at the beginning of combat on your turn. The more relevant thing is ability to turn red mana into charge counters, and then use 50 of those to blast for 50 damage to any target. So it's an infinite mana outlet that can easily be recurred from the graveyard and tutored from the library. It's not exactly the best thing for that job, but it's worth mentioning here due to mana value. You can, for example, recommission it back to the battlefield, or target it with Sevin's Reclamation. Next on the lists are Mai and Zuko. For 1 generic and Grixis mana, we get a 3/5 with Firebending 3. But the most important line of text here is that you can cast ally and artifact spells as though they had flash. With those colors, that means artifact combos at instant speed, with bonus 3 mana at attack trigger. Monk Gyatso is already being called the Mono White Nadu. It's not that broken, but it has some really unique gameplay lines that use creatures that reduce their casting costs in different ways. That reduction applies to airbending costs, so you can spam cast creatures over and over if you have something that can target them for free. And some of them draw you a card when entering, so you can just draw your whole deck. I think that the Blue Spirit is a really funny card. It seems innocent enough that it shouldn't be high on priority list, but its effect can be quite powerful in the right deck. Over the course of 1 turn cycle, you have at least 4 combat phases, and that means you can potentially trigger him up to 4 times. You don't need to actually cast a creature for this card draw. Any blink effect or something that pulls a creature to the battlefield will work. Chakra Meditation has a very high potential. The base effect of returning an instant or sorcery card to your hand on permanent that can be flickered to retrigger is already a nice thing. Additional looting effect on any other instant or sorcery cast is just gravy. Katara Waterbending Master has a very powerful effect. It's quite easy to trigger her own experience gaining ability, but she can be even more powerful in decks that gain those in different ways, like Azuri Claw of Progress or Mystics of the Ismagnus. In those decks she can refill your hand on each attack and help boost the accumulation of experience counters for commanders. Tui and La, Moon and Ocean, is another one of the cards that go infinite with Relic of Legends and Freed from the Real. You can draw your whole deck and have a very big fish. Fire Lord Ozai is also quite simple to use. It's an infinite mana outlet that can be your commander in Rakdos colors. You can also use him as a sack outlet that gives you a boost of mana. On the other hand, Fire Nation Occupation is a great value engine. Not only you get a nice token creature when it enters, but you also get additional one each time you cast a spell on your opponent's turn. Great inclusion in interaction heavy decks. Iroh, Dragon of the West, has a very explosive potential. For 2 generic and double red we get a 4/4 with haste and mentor ability, and a beginning of combat trigger that gives all our creatures with counters Firebending 2. Great in counters deck, but also great in decks that abuse modular mechanic. Lost in Memories can be compared to Snapcaster Mage. Great on creature with double strike, but not as flexible as Snappy. Storm of Memories is a storm card. I know, very nuanced analysis here, but what can I say? Storm decks got a new toy to play around. Zuko Firebending Master has a similar potential to Katara. Triggering his ability to get experience counter is quite easy, since it can be any combat phase. His ability can get you a lot of extra mana on attack trigger. Good tech card for right decks. The Cabbage Merchant will be great in EDH, and in more casual decks that focus on food tokens, or those with Academy Manufacture. Any card that can get you additional mana for resources generated via opponent's action works great in Commander. Master's Guidance looks like something that can be easily slotted into any deck that runs a commander with at least 4 power and has access to green. The fact that it triggers on the end step and not the upkeep means you'll almost always get some value from this card. The counters on attack trigger can sometimes be relevant, but let's be honest, the end step trigger is more important here. Frantic Confrontation is a new toy for prowess decks. You get First Strike and Trample at the base cost of 1 red mana, but you can dump all of your Firebending mana into the X for extra damage. Gutter Snipe design in 2025, or rather Longshot Rebel Bowman, is a fine example of power creep. It costs only 1 more mana than mentioned earlier Goblin, but it's a 3/3 with reach that gives you a discount for non-creature spells, and also triggers on all non-creatural spells instead of only instant and sorceries. It can also be your commander if you want. Think about Solid Ground as an additional hardened scale effects for +1/+1 counters deck. It's not the best, but it's another one of those. Lion Vulture is kinda funny. If an opponent lost the life during the turn you played it, it would be a 3/3 flyer that draws you a card. Not great for 4 mana, but not the worst deal ever. If it lives for another turn cycle, the value of this card grows exponentially. This is your mandatory mention of Fire Nation Archers. It's a mana outlet that deals damage while creating tokens. Quite expensive at 5 mana, but requires only colorless to activate. Seismic Tutelage is another card for +1/+1 counters deck. That doubling effect on attack will end games quite quickly. And finally we have a Mechanical Glider, an artifact for 1 generic mana that can equip itself to creature when entering, and it grants flying. Great in prowess decks, also great in any decks that want some evasion pieces to throw by Urza's Saga. Even the equip cost isn't so bad. I honestly thought that this would be worse, but most of the cards in the subset are reprints, so I skipped over them in this list. Nevertheless, I would keep an eye on those mentioned here, there's a big chance you'll see them on your table. And with that, I'm done for today. See ya in the next one.